Holland and Holland have been making guns and rifles since the 1830s. Their guns are recognised as the finest in the world. Shotguns are made to be very light, with the weight concentrated between the hands to give fast handling. These are bespoke guns, meaning they are made to measure. A shotgun is not aimed as such and needs to point at what the shooter is looking at. The guns are therefore tailored to fit the shooter, with the stock formed ensuring that the barrels sit under the eye of the shooter, correctly aligned for direction and elevation. An expert fitter can rig the tri-gun so that the shot is going in the right place. Holland and Holland are unique in that they make every component of their guns in their Harrow Road factory. The machine room is where many of these parts start. State-of-the-art milling and eroding machines are computer controlled. This gives the craftsmen the best possible quality parts with which to start, and allows them to concentrate their time filing and fitting, the rough work having already been done. A bespoke gun is shaped to fit its owner from the breech bank. The lock plates, trigger guard and strap are all curved and shaped so that the gun flows from the barrels through the action into the stock. Bend or drop influences the elevation of the shot, with the cast set for the left or right-handed shooter. The barrels are the first part of the gun to be made. The barrel maker strikes the tubes, always ensuring the same thickness all the way round, whilst giving them the beautiful shape and the gun its handling characteristics. It takes up to 5 years to become a proficient barrel maker, to master the supple shapes and fine precision. There is a 1/1000th of an inch tolerance allowed in the wall thickness of the barrel. The barrels are made to be identical, testing the skill of the barrel maker.
You have to be perfect all the way.
Made even harder when making a pair of guns, which need to be indistinguishable from one another.
Here I'm ready for the brazing. Just putting some flex.
When the tubes are shaped, they are brazed together. This is a relatively high temperature process to make a permanent joint. Then the ribs are made and fitted.
The white and the black.
They are tinned to the barrels. This process uses a non-corrosive pine resin as a flux. The barrels are then cleaned up and go forward to the actioning shop. The first stage of actioning is to fit the action to the barrels. This is a highly skilled job, as the fit on the face has to be perfect.
As we face the gun down, we'll keep removing material from the face until we get the perfect bearing on the barrels to the action.
Smoke is applied to the meeting faces, then the barrels and face put together. Where the black comes off is a high point, and this is filed down and then tested again, bit by bit, until the black comes off evenly all over. Once the barrels and action are fitted together, the action assembly is then built up, always keeping the bend and drop measurements perfect. Each part is fitted to the action using the same telltale smoke lamp method and careful filing. The actioning process takes about 250 hours. The action is cleaned up at the end. However, all the parts fit together very tightly, the craftsman leaving them this way deliberately. The gun is made to work smoothly at the last stage in the finishing shop. part way through their making, the gun is sent to proof and tested for a gas-tight seal between the barrel and action. Proof marks are stamped on the barrels.
The lock plate is being fitted to the action. I'll show you the trigger plate fixed in from underneath.
The stock blanks, commonly Turkish walnut, are chosen by the customer for their grain structure, fine figure and colour. The right kind of tree is very rare indeed. When one is found, it is cut specially and the blanks are dried for up to 2 years before they are stable enough to become a gun stock. The harshness of the conditions the trees grow in gives the wood its wonderful characteristics: hot, dry summers, freezing winters and rocky, unforgiving soil. The first part of stocking is to head the action into the stock.
So you got nothing on, and my lines are.
Because the strap is curved, the action is let in an arc, ending up with the action being positioned with the bend to be correct, all the time taking into account the cast. The fit between the stock and the action has to be perfect, or the forces transferred by the firing of the gun will split the wood.
Remove them as carefully as I can. Just the high point. Getting more bearings in here.
Once the action is let into the stock, the lock plates can then be let in, and then the stock is shaped. The smoke black telltale allows the stocker to see what's going on inside, what's touching and where.
Thing you recognise. And this time I'm going to let it all the way down, which will then move all the other pieces all the way forward so you can hear metal hit metal, and then all the way back so you can hear it cocking.
The craftsmen make many of their tools. A stocker needs a large number of different shaped chisels, and they all need to be razor sharp. The stock is then shaped to a rough form. Then the trigger is let in and the fore end is made. Each part of the process is done by using the smoke lamp, taking off tiny bits of material each time until a perfect fit is attained. Great care is taken not to take off too much material, as the fit must be perfect. There can be no gaps. The metalwork of the fore end is let in by the same method, smoke lamp and repetition. Finer and finer files are used, then finer and finer paper until the surface is smooth. The head is cleaned, a fine cut taken off all round to give a sharp, fresh surface. Finally, when the stock and fore end are papered, the grain is raised using water, heat and paper. Then the wood is oiled. A rifle requires special regulation to make sure the barrels are shooting together at the correct distance. In this case, 50 yards. The gun is fired by a marksman. On this rifle, a Holland & Holland 470, the barrels are seen to be crossing about 6 inches and need adjusting. The barrels are therefore heated so that the tin melts. When cooled, the rifle is cleaned up and shot again to see that the shots are going in the same place. A second regulation will be done later for the elevation. The sights will be filed down and shaped. The wedge will be filed up so that it disappears, leaving it almost impossible to see the joins in the metal. Shotgun regulation is the process of making sure the spread of pellets is correct according to the choke size. The regulator counts the pellets in a 30-inch circle at 40 yards and looks at the number and evenness of the spread. He then works a lead lap in the choke and shapes it to give a better spread on the desired pellet count. This is something of a black art. He works by feel, knowing how much pressure to apply to get the desired result.
You'll see that it's got a slightly longer, almost a sort of softer 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch long cone.
This is the process of preparing the parts of the gun to make them ready for engraving. Every part is painstakingly polished, all the screws and pins made off. The screws in the gun line up, the slots parallel. This is a sign of quality and is pleasing to the eye. Parts are polished in such a way as to keep the edges. Another sign of quality. The engraver starts by drawing the design onto the metal with a pencil, then scores a more permanent outline. The design is then cut into the metal. It takes many years to learn this trade, and at least a month to complete each gun. Designs are varied, from the classic acanthus leaf or scroll, to game scenes, pictures of grand houses or estates, people, dogs, or even more exotic scenes. There is nothing that cannot be engraved on a gun. The engraving was initially simple decoration, but today it has turned into a fine art form. Later, the action is sent out for case hardening. This makes the surface glass hard to prevent scratching and wear. The barrels are sent out to be blacked, an oxidization process which gives them a beautiful deep luster. The last process is to finish the gun. In this department, the gun is made to work properly and smoothly, all the parts working together in harmony.
Like this, it will take about 4 hours.
This is where the feel is given to the gun. Until now, the parts have been left very tight. Here they are eased until they work smoothly. The trigger pulls are regulated so that the pressure required to pull the trigger is exactly right. The balance and weight of the gun is adjusted, then the stock is plugged, made off and finished.
This is an example of a plug.
The ejector timing is set, both barrels ejecting simultaneously. The checkering is created on the stock and forend.
I've got several of these tools. Obviously they wear out in time and you have to remake them.
First, the pattern is marked out, then the lines are drawn in, then they are cut with a V form to a full depth. The flats disappear and turn to points like miniature pyramids. In the finishing shop, every part is highly polished and burnished, still keeping all the edges sharp and pronounced. The wood is polished and oiled to a high gloss. This stock oiling impregnates the wood with oil and coats it like a varnish at the same time. Each coat has to dry before another can be applied. With 2 coats a day, this can take weeks to complete. Finally, the gun is assembled, tested and then recleaned. 2 years after it started life here, it is ready for delivery to the customer. There are very few articles made in the world today where so much care is taken to form something so individually perfect to fit the customer. The result is a beautiful gun, each one unique, a tool, a work of art, an investment, and a possession cherished for life.